Hello, I'm Marvin Hemmerling.
We got something here.
This is... It started for me the way that it usually does, with a little blue engine. Eventually, as time went on, my collection did what everybody's collection does and expanded. After the expansion, there was usually nowhere available for roaming needs, as of which would become necessary throughout the day, as either I left here to go do something, or I got lunch. Either or. One would be asked, why dare pay attention to such an obnoxious distraction? And before, I had never really thought about the why of it. Now I think I've got the answer. The general volume of which is affected by rail transportation is just so great, at such a great value, to a point in which my whittle mind becomes ecstatic. Of course, America benefiting from the railroad's existence plays a key factor into why they are still here today and available to be viewed by any passerbys who happen to interact with railroad infrastructure. Now, as can happen with children, railroading was not my first interest. It was actually scale cars, as my father worked with them. However, once I was given internet access, the ability to free roam and do virtually whatever I could imagine was so alluring that I had found two new interests. I had first shown interest in the Pokemon franchise. Of which is a hobby that I still care about, but of which is claimed to fail in comparison to my other hobby. Chances are that if you searched up an adjective and a fruit's name, you would find the object in which opened my eye to railfanning. That being a little series about a little orange. That simple comedy was enough to get me hooked on railfanning for life, so much so that every time that I heard something, I would rush to our dryer area where we'd wash clothes and all that, because there was a straight shot view of the Indianapolis subdivision out of Indianapolis, Indiana. and which was in direct view of where I would have been standing, which allowed me to view locomotives regularly. It was this excitement in which I possessed that I wished to share with the world, creating my first ever video, which is the clip you're seeing in the background now. I did have a couple of videos before this. However, most of those were deleted a while ago because I had a big old channel reset. Though my channel says joined March 14th, 2018, I've been railfanning for at least 10 years tops. Over the years, I've been gathering information to which I could use to allow other railfans to also further understand the railroad world as it is seen today and in how it acts. So much so that I can look at a locomotive and identify it within 30 minutes. If a locomotive's road number is in the 3000s, it's an ES44AH. If it's in the 700s to 900s, it is an ES44AC, the difference being the ES44AH is heavier. If it's in the 1200s road number, it's an ES40DC, the difference being that ES44AHs and ACs have 4400 horsepower, while ES40 DCs have 4000 horsepower and run on DC current, direct current. CM44 ACs are typically in the 7000th road number and are different from the others by being rebuilt AC 4400s, which run on AC current like the ES44 ACs and AHs. However, the ES44Hs and ACs are slightly eco-friendly. It was information like locomotive identification in which allowed me to be able to understand where, when, and how a locomotive would be somewhere. And as to the someday that locomotive would be that somewhere. At that somewhere, on top of which tracking software is picked up for me in areas of expertise where I had no information. Where like this filled in for me when I had no information to provide for those who were looking for locomotives at certain times. With my current knowledge and the information provided by those websites, I'm able to regularly spot rare stuff.
Give me a break. Anywho, double heritage M216. How about this? Ex-New York Central trackage. Dude, over the last couple of months, I've seen this thing many times. I'll let the clips play for this. Check that out. What's out? This is one I've been trying to see for quite some time now, as throughout life I have decided that it is my favorite of CSX's many spirit units.
That's one I've wanted to see for a long time. Nice, I finally get to see it.
Light power's a relatively uncommon occurrence here on the Indianapolis, but fortunately enough for me, I was able to spot these two coming back from off what looked to be maybe an M363 or something like that. A little after seeing my favorite spirit unit, I got word that my favorite sticker unit, the 124, was coming through. Before this, I had actually missed it. Here's my most recent. New York Central actually ran on the Indianapolis subdivision. In fact, that was the railroad that formerly owned this line. This is my second favorite locomotive in the history of ever, 4568, Operation Lifesaver Unit. Here's the PL&E, found on 007. I made this little meme after seeing it. This bandit is CSX's newest unit. Saw her on an M331 out of Cumberland.
31, heading to Avonport.
I'm not one for DPUs, but here's the Atlantic coastline.
Was at the back.
363. Now this was quite fortunate, as I had legitimately just gotten food and barely had word of anything nearby at all. Then I got word that this was coming by from a group member on Facebook. Follow us at Bellefontaines, Ohio Railfans on Facebook. We usually keep y'all updated. Not only was the Spirit of Mongolia leading, but there was a maintenance away boxcar and all kinds of older boxcars and
Maintenance away the Seaboard Coastline. If I had a nickel for every time I've seen a Seaboard System 86-foot boxcar on a mixed manifest, well, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it is weird that it's happened twice. Ooh, and an older chassis box, too. It's regular size, but...
Here's my homeboy Dante. Yo, what's up, Chickways? On an M276 heading to the Cumberland area.
Here it's a biggin'. 600 act.
We're looking for this one for Halloween because it's a gray ghost and now I've seen both of these two already, but them both being on the same consist is relatively rare, so
Yep.
that's the Conrail with owned a lot of the United States trackage, specifically on the East Coast, going alley-oop and splitting it between CSX and Norfolk Southern. Here's a lot of people's favorite locomotive on the CSX, number 911. Before this, and beyond the other rail fans who saw this consist this day, this is the first time that this has ever been shown on YouTube. You are the first people to see this cat Some of you probably wonder, why waste your bottom for cool paint? Which, to be fair, is a good question. I could be doing something else right now. I could be keeping track of stocks, but I am not. Much rather, I'm going and looking and spotting some of the most unique railroad rolling stock and power that hasn't been seen in well over 10 years on the CSX. Back in the Rainbow era, where CSX leaks power like crazy. Almost like what Norfolk Southern did about a year, 2 years ago. However, unlike the power shortages of yesteryear, these CSX paint schemes are very much so intentional. In fact, it's the reflection of these railroads that makes them so desirable to see, and hence my enjoyment of it. Because without these railroads, in which are remembered throughout these paint schemes, we would not have the modern railroads of today, nor the devices they carry. As much as enjoying railroading is not everyone's cup of tea, it is mine. And so, I hope that through my joy and entertainment of rail that, although
Upon interruption, they are your worst enemy. Through understanding, they become significantly more interesting.
it's through interest that these distractions become less distracting and more joyful. It is through that joy that you begin to live with the multi-thousand pounds rushing by you, that the storm seems to calm, and that anxieties become less anxious. So that next time,
Instead of turning away or jumping the gate because you have somewhere better to be,
waiting becomes less of a disturbance
and more peaceful. So when you're
on steady rail as time marches on, you find yourself with a wide grin as the EOT passes.